Hey everybody, welcome back to Startup Happy Hour. I'm your host, Diana Chen, and I'm here today with our guest, Christiana Cromer. Christiana is the marketing manager at Coiled, which is a company that makes it easy to scale on the cloud using Dask. And so you probably already have a lot of questions there, as do I. So I'm going to bring Christiana on to tell you more about that. Hey Christiana, welcome.
Hi, Diana. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. So I'll let you talk about it. I did some research on Coiled, but it seemed pretty complicated. If I'm honest, I've never heard of Dask before, and I know that's a big thing behind what you guys do. So I'll let you talk about what. Just start off with what is Coiled, and maybe give us a background into what is Dask.
Totally. Yeah. So I had the same exact questions when I was interviewing with Coiled, for sure. I'd never heard of Dask, did not know much about data science and machine learning, except for that it existed and it was important. So yeah, in the past 5 months working with Coiled, my entire world around these things have completely opened up. So Coiled is built on top of Dask, and Dask is an open source software and project that basically it scales Python, so the coding language Python, to make what data scientists and machine learning engineers do all the more powerful, and also help them get their work done faster. So basically allowing data scientists to solve giant problems quicker and faster and help humanity, of course. So what Coiled does is Dask scales Python and Coiled scales Dask. So there's layers to this. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. It's definitely super high tech. We're an engineering first company for sure. I was one of the earliest non-technical hires for sure on the marketing side. I was the first marketing hire apart from my boss, who's the director of marketing and data science at our company. So yeah, that's it. And it's one of those it's a niche tech company where if you're not super involved with like the data science and machine learning world, what is Dask? What do all these things mean? Not everybody in the world even knows what Python is. So definitely a huge learning curve for someone like me. But if you're in the world of data science, you know what Dask is. And if I do my job right, they'll know what Coiled is soon. So
awesome. Okay, so lots to unpack there. Let's break it down for our listeners and for myself too. So you mentioned that Python, Dask scales Python. So that leads me to think that Python in and of itself has some scalability issues. And so Python, it's a back-end coding language for those of you listening who don't know. So maybe start by talking about what are some of the limitations of scaling Python that caused Dask to be formed.
Totally. Yeah. So basically what you just said was a great summation. Yeah. So the way like scalable computing is relatively new, like multi-system processing, which allows, in a nutshell, everything that engineers want to doing it better, faster, bigger scale. And Python and lots of coding languages were not developed with scalable computing in mind. So the open source community came in and built things on top of Python to make life easier and better and to get the most out of these things. So like that's what Dask is. So the CEO of Coiled, Matt Rocklin, and his collaborators created Dask 6 years ago. Dask just turned 6. To basically solve those problems and make Python more scalable, for sure.
Got it. And then you talked a lot about data science too, and how like data scientists all know about Dask. How would you bridge the gap between data science and Python, which we know as just a coding language?
Totally. Yeah. So from my understanding, Python is one of the most popular like languages and means for data scientists to do what they need to do with their giant data sheets and whatnot. Like we hear about like R and sort of like the classic data science tools, but Python has grown in popularity so much over the years. And I know like a lot of influencers in this space say if you want to do data science, you need to know Python. Um, so I'm trying to remember your original question. What was it? Basically,
Just just how do you bridge the gap between data science and Python, which most people know as just a coding language?
totally, yeah. So look, Python turns out to be like a fantastic tool for data scientists doing what they want to do. Um, and this is, of course, all second degree information for me because I don't know Python and I don't know data science. And so it's been really interesting, like it's interesting hearing you asking me these questions because these are the questions that like I have been asking and like continued to ask and fully understand. Um, because I wouldn't have known that Python was a preferred tool for data. Like I just think of like CS and software engineering. But it turns out that Python is just so powerful for like like slicing and dicing giant data sets and parsing out information and like learning and things like that. And then Dask, of course, makes that possible in this scale, doing things faster. And then Coiled makes that even better. So yeah, just getting like further and further like granular and providing anybody that can use these things, because anybody that does Python can learn Dask, and those that know Dask can learn Coiled. So it's just this Maslow's hierarchy of data science needs is really what the crux is here. So
Okay, got it. That was going to be one of my questions because I had Jonah Ehrlich from Bubble on recently, and he talked about, you know, how somebody goes about learning Bubble. It's kind of a new coding language, even though it's no code. So it's interesting to hear you say that if you know Python, then it sounds like you automatically know how to use Dask and automatically know how to use Coiled. Or is there still a learning curve to learn Dask and Coiled?
totally. So that's actually not the case at all. So Python is a hugely popular language. We know this. And Dask is one of the top 5 scaling data science tools that folks use. But there is a lot out there. There's all kinds of people, if people are familiar with this space, there's Spark, which is sort of another tool that's been around in the OSS community for a very long time. And we talk a lot about the pros and cons of Spark versus Dask versus Rapids and things like that, which all sounds like a lot of vernacular. But so yeah, no, you have to learn these things still. And it's hard. It's learning scalable computing and multiprocessing, and so it's definitely an additional skill, and that's part of what Coiled is. Because you at this point in time, you have to have an understanding of Dask to get the most out of Coiled, and so part of Coiled's job is providing people with resources for learning Dask, which is something we do on the marketing side, of course. Like, are you giving users content for the best way and like guides for the best way to use Dask with Python. So
Got it. And so what are some of the things that differentiate Coiled from some of your competitors?
yeah, so we definitely have competitors. This is a busy space for sure. Enterprise building around OSS is something that I think we're going to see a lot of, and we see also a lot of big fish getting involved too. So what differentiates Coiled from our competitors? We have this beautiful integration with the Dask community because our company was started by Dask creators and maintainers. So the in-house know-how of Dask at Coiled is just unparalleled. So that was great for me, having been new to the space, getting to hear like Matt Rocklin, who's a creator of Dask, speak about what this is and what this means for the people that it influences is huge. So we just have a lot of experience, and our engineers are extremely familiar with the pain points of people using Dask. And we just have an edge in terms of understanding the problems and knowing what to do to fix them. So
Got it. Okay, so you come from a non-tech background, and Coiled, like you said, is a very technical company. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, what drew you to Coiled?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, as soon as I entered the entrepreneurship world, I knew that I loved tech and was fascinated by its implications, but that I honestly knew that I did not have a huge value add for me to learn how to code. Like that just like wasn't it for me. I didn't want to, and I think I had like a lot of shame surrounding that for a while. It has since passed. I no longer have it like on my to do list to learn Python, which was on there for like 4 years probably. But then so I'm just graduated from college in 2020, in May of 2020, and I was job searching, and I came across Coiled. I just saw this huge opportunity to expose myself to this high tech world and learn the vernacular of high tech entrepreneurs and engineers, and just like this is an entire new world. I have learned like lingo and tools that I would not have been exposed to otherwise. And of course, that was scary and a risk. Like, even now, every single time I explain Coiled or Dask, it's like I'm learning something new, or it's still challenging, of course. But I like that. So I think that opportunity for exposure to something different was really enticing to me, and just the opportunity to learn from people that have like actually built the technology that they're now building a company around was really interesting to me.
For sure. And I think if you're interested in the entrepreneurship and startup world moving forward, you almost have to be in the tech space a little bit, because every company to a certain extent nowadays is a tech company. There's hardly any company that doesn't use technology at all. And then if you want to be on the forefront of cutting edge technology and things like that, you have to, even as a non-technical person, you have to learn some of that vernacular.
Absolutely.
So now that you have worked at Coiled for a little bit, and you have interned at other companies in the past that weren't as techy, also as in a marketing role, how would you compare being in a marketing role in a super techy company versus in a less techy company?
It's a great question. And honestly, what's different is very different, but there's a lot of the same. Like, we're still community building. We're still running our emails through Grammarly to make sure we don't have typos. We're still finding out who the big players are in our ecosystem and trying to collaborate with them, doing joint marketing initiatives, running events and things like that. The big difference is that the environment, being surrounded by data scientists are a unique community. They know their stuff, and they're looking to get their work done. They're not looking to be sold. So it's almost like the biggest difference. I was doing like more like consumer facing stuff last time, or in my past for sure. And this is just like I'm providing a tool that is going to make their work better. And it's no nonsense. Like we have so much fun for sure, but it's just a different way of expressing the value that we have for our users. And so that's been the biggest difference. But in terms of the day to day, I'm still tweeting and community building and stuff like that. And a lot of those methods for growth are tried and true.
For sure. And so something that I have been reading or just seen pop up a lot lately is the connection between content marketing and community building. And you just hit on this quite a bit. You said, a lot of it is community building. How would you sort of explain that concept to people who maybe have been in the marketing space for a little bit, but have always seen their marketing role as separate from a community building or a customer service role? Can you help explain how these two are actually very much intertwined?
Totally. So specifically in going off of what you said about the connection between like content and community, I really think that community is the biggest asset to any growing company. Like these are like in the data science world and in the tech world, we think about like the concept of evangelism. So can you build this group of people that see the value in what you're providing and love it, and have this reciprocal relationship where you're providing them with this awesome tool in our case, but they're giving so much to us every single time they use it, every time they post in Slack and ask a question or share something on Twitter. Like it is a relationship, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's really a gift that keeps giving. And seeing, this is what I love about the folks that I work with at Coiled, is we really see them as, they're not just like open rates in our emails and things like that. Like we are getting valuable feedback from them, and when it comes to the content, especially, so that's one of our biggest things at Coiled is our content marketing strategy, and it's always community first. It's you can write an awesome blog post, but if it's not addressing their problems or something that's actually interesting to them, it's not going to hit, right? So you have to, every time you put something out, whether it's a new feature or a blog or an email or whatever it might be, thinking about the community first is so key. And community is like a viral marketing loop in itself. Like every time I'm wowed by something, like I want to share it with my friends, So yeah, I think it's so integral, and I also think that it's going to be more important. Like you said, everything is a tech company now, and I think that we're going to kind of see like a back to the basics. People are still going to want to connect in like this weird virtual world even more, and when the tech companies that are going to be able to provide that are going to win time and time again, in my opinion. So
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So tell us give us a behind the scenes look at what a marketing manager at a high tech company does, like day in and day out. And I know to a certain extent, there is no day to day for people who work in startups, because
Right.
every day is different. And that's sort of the appeal that draws us to this space.
Uh-huh.
But as much as you can, talk about, some of the things that you do on a regular basis for people listening who maybe are in the marketing space, but haven't made their way into a tech startup yet and want to get there, so they have a better understanding of what it actually looks like to be a marketing manager at a tech startup.
Totally. Yeah. So I think that there's probably like two splits about, like, chunking up the way that I perceive what I do all the time. And part of it is definitely keeping the wheels running on all of our marketing engines. So that's our social, our community building for sure, feeding into our Slack channels and things like that, our newsletter, promoting our events. We just had a great webinar last night with like over 100 people. And so like a lot goes into that, of course. So yeah, all of those sorts of classic marketing activities is definitely something that I do every single day. And you're right, there's patterns for sure, but we discover new things that we need to be doing every day, or things that need my attention. And so that's definitely a thing. But when the difference between being a marketing manager at a startup, especially an early stage startup, versus a larger company that's been around for a while, is that we're building the tracks as we're going. So something that I love about my job is that we're trying things out, and we're testing all the time. And when something works, we optimize and we keep going, and we're creating these engines, and it's so exciting and so fun. So coming up with ideas, trying new things is a huge part of my job. And so it's like working in this entrepreneurial environment. And then also my job is entrepreneurial, because we as a team come up with these ideas and see if there's legs under them. And sometimes there isn't, and that's fine. And we don't do that anymore. But sometimes there is. And it's this really exciting thing when we find out that this new traction channel is fruitful for us. And, our company just turned 1 year old, and we're an engineering first company. And so now that we sort of have this room to stretch our legs marketing wise a bit, we're learning all kinds of fun and cool stuff. And so it's definitely it's interesting to do it in this environment because I know going forward, if I were to ever start a company myself, for example, I have all these experiences of testing and trying in this marketing environment that is just, I'm learning a lot. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and speaking of that, is that in the plans for you to start your own company one day?
Yeah, yeah, of course, I would love to. Um, Something I learned, I think in college and in high school, I've always wanted to start something. I'm attracted to that lifestyle for sure, and that lifestyle, like it's there's pros and cons. That's the wrong way to say it, but I'm definitely attracted to uh, creating impact for people that wasn't there before, providing like a new avenue. I think that that's super exciting and super important. And I like the scary feeling of starting something new. It's that energy is super vibrant to me, and I love it. And I think I so learned though that you can't just like start something, you know. Like I'm definitely going to be more thoughtful about it, and like I have this great, my friend, she talks about how she's an engineer at like Facebook, and she just graduated as well, and her metaphor is she's getting her sea legs, and once she gets them, then maybe she'll start something of her own. So I'm definitely still getting my chops, and I think that I have so much to learn. And I'm a 22-year-old that's getting humbled in the best way, and I think when the right idea and the right team comes around, though, I definitely plan to start a company. So
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable and balanced way to look at it. I think a lot of entrepreneurs do have that personality of let's just go and do it, and there's like that impulsivity. But
right.
it sounds like you've gone through some things where you've learned that maybe slow and steady wins the race. So can you share a little bit about how you came to this realization, whether it was back in high school or college or anything that you were involved in entrepreneurship wise that taught you these lessons?
Totally. Yeah. Well, I think in college I was involved in lots of entrepreneurial activities and started a few different like projects of my own. And I just it's a lot harder than it looks. And when you like, especially while I was in college having school, like that took time. And I wasn't fully ready. I had this, and this is an energy that a lot of my friends have too. Hope and I talk about this a lot, of having all of this excited energy around these ideas and talking about them and like doing like these minimum viable tests and things, and then realizing like, wait, I like don't want to like throw away what I'm doing right now to do that yet. And so I would have like these spurts of really fun creative energies, like thinking about this project, and then just realizing that that's not really what I wanted to do in that current moment, you know? And it wasn't really like the type of impact that I would want to have. And so I think I'm just a lot more intentional about that now and like how I spend my time, and taking a little bit of like pressure off of like, I don't need to start a company until I'm going to provide value to people or do something that I really love. So yeah, I just learned that through like I was working on this blog for a while in college, and of course the goal is always to like build it up until you can like, well, for some people make money off of it. That was like my idea. And I just realized like I wasn't passionate enough about what I was writing about to like stay home from like the bar to do it. Like, you know, and I think but there are some things that I am passionate enough about to do that, and that just wasn't it. And so like trial by error, I like realized that I just like I'm just gonna wait until an idea or a concept or a community that I want to impact grabs me by the collar, and I'm willing to change my life for it. And so yeah, until then, I still get excited by things all the time, and there's always room for like a fun side project and things like that. But until then, I am surrounded by entrepreneurs that I'm learning from every day at work, and I am enjoying it. So
That's awesome. Another point that you made earlier is, you said that you'll wait until the right idea comes to mind, which you just hit on with, something you're passionate about and that brings value to people. And then you also said when the right team comes around. And so to you, what does the right team look like?
Yeah. Oh, they're certainly the wrong teams, right? I think so a great, I don't know if we specifically talked about this yet. We talked about this before we started recording, but being exposed to entrepreneurial communities in college, I was surrounded by, and working at startups, surrounded by entrepreneurial people. And you just realize there's some people that are you're supposed to start companies with, and there's some people that you're not supposed to start companies with. And not everybody is supposed to be a founder, and that is so fine. And you can still be an impactful person in entrepreneurship without starting a company. And so I think that sort of like self-awareness is huge. So like I have a friend who's one of the most talented designers I know, and she was in ELP and we worked on projects together, and she just said, I don't want to be a founder. I never want to be a founder, but I always want to work at a startup. And I just loved that self-awareness. So she's on my speed dial for design hire number one because she's fantastic. Um, yeah, and also just like knowing myself, like I'm gonna need a CTO that's going to set me straight on some of my big ideas that are technically really challenging, and I don't have the know-how to fully like scope that out in my brain. So that's huge. And also just finding the right balance of like the charismatic visionary leadership versus like boots on the ground and things like that, and just making sure you have the right balance of heads in the room, and bringing, and like diversity, of course, like who is it on your advisor board, and who are your first hires and things like that, I think are so important. And yeah, I think there's tons of stories in entrepreneurship about founding teams that just realized they were bad marriage partners. They just were, and it is like a marriage, 100%. So yeah, I think I'm sure lessons will be had, and I also don't think there's no such thing as a perfect founder relationship. And I know I've like tried to work on projects with some of my best friends, and it's figuring out where's the lineation between we're working now or we're having fun, and being thoughtful about those things. So I think there's a lot of structure to it that people need to be thoughtful about, and I definitely will intend to be when the time comes, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's like how people say like sometimes best friends can't be roommates.
Right.
It'll ruin your friendship because when you live with somebody or when you work with somebody, there's a lot more to that relationship than just hanging out and doing fun things together.
Absolutely.
So looking back now to sort of your journey to getting here, what is the number one piece of advice you would give to somebody in college right now that wants to become the marketing manager at a tech startup one day?
Hmm. Oh, that's great. I think especially I'm gonna tailor my answer towards people that are non-technical. Um, and I'm thinking about rebranding that word to tech adjacent. Let me know what you think.
Ooh, I like that. I've never heard that before. I like it.
Just
You
'cause
should trademark that.
I might. I know my copyright lawyer is on the phone. Um, but yeah, so I think if you want to get involved with marketing at a tech startup and you're non-technical, I think truly understanding the value that you provide on the marketing side and being able to articulate that very well and show it is just key. And I think really honing in on your curiosity about what that company is doing and the people that it impacts, and displaying your willingness to learn anything. That's the key. I really think that that's how I got my current job, is that I said very honestly, this is new to me, but I'm so curious about it, and I'll learn anything if you give me the opportunity to. And they trust that. And it's been great. And so there is 100% going to be skills that other people in a room have that you don't, and that you can't fully talk about, but you can't let that intimidate you into thinking that you're not meant to be in that room, because you are, and you make that room more powerful when you're there. And knowing that and resting in that, and then just always feeding into your own curiosity, being willing to learn, is huge.
For sure. I love that advice. I can relate to that so much because I'm also in marketing at a super technical company with not a technical background. And I think even tech companies are becoming more and more open to making hires that are non-technical. And I think the one big value that, I really thought I could bring my company right now, that I think non-technical marketing managers can bring to tech companies in general, is to be able to translate highly technical concepts into basic English. Absolutely. Right? So if you want the masses to be able to get on board with your product, or if you want to expose it to the masses instead of just marketing to highly technical people, then you need somebody that can translate that.
Absolutely.
And this is something that went back when I was a lawyer, it was like lawyers just speak this lingo, and it's almost like a foreign language, and it's so annoying because it's like, why can't you just say this in English, and then everybody can understand you, and you're saying the same thing, but you have to use this, it's almost like you're part of this exclusive club and you only have your club lingo. Just say it in English and make it relatable to everybody. And I think that is really, if you can have that curiosity that you talked about, and you're genuinely interested, then I think you can offer a ton of value to a tech startup by translating their message into plain English for the masses.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like we should start a support group for us non-technical marketers in big technical worlds. Absolutely.
There you go. Maybe we should. Maybe we should start a clubhouse. That's what everybody's doing these days, huh?
You know what? We should definitely do that. That's a good idea, actually, for sure.
We'll start a club where the only lingo you need to know is just English.
English, right. And actually, sorry guys, no technical people allowed.
Yeah, there you go. The tables have turned.
Prove that you cannot code and you may enter the clubhouse room.
You'll have a coding test to prove that you cannot code.
Right. And if you fail, you're in.
All right. Nobody else steal this idea. Christiana and I are doing it.
Exactly.
Okay. So one of the themes that I have for this season of Startup Happy Hour is, how are we going to use the technology we have to shape the future? And so when you think about the technology that is behind Coiled and behind Dask, and you think long-term and in the future, 5, 10, even 20 years in the future, where do you see this technology being? Do you see it still being used? Do you see it being used but in a different version of it? Or talk more about where you see this shaping the future in the next 10 years.
Totally. Yeah, well, we are in a data revolution. Absolutely. You said earlier, every company is a tech company. I think that every company is also a data company now. And data is infused in everything that we do, better or for worse. It's just true. And so what Coiled and what Dask and what data scientists that use Python are doing is solving really important problems with the data that's out there. And so Coiled and Dask is empowering people to do that quicker, to get to answers faster, and at a larger scale, which is just increasing the impact of this work over and over again exponentially. And I think that is so important. And so we've seen a Coiled user used our technology to work on predicting voter turnout in the 2020 election. So important. Stuff with COVID, and the way we had somebody on talking about the way that they use data science and Dask to help the New York MTA subway system figure out data problems and how things had shifted with the pandemic, and helping with safety and things like that. And that is only going to we're just at the tip of the iceberg with that. And so I think this is the data. The data revolution is just starting, and I can only imagine what the world is going to be like in 10 years with all the information that we have in our phones and our watches and everything around us, and figuring out the best way to use that. And if there's very much more human ways to do that and solve really important problems, I think that's the future. And it's interesting I'm glad you asked this, because of course in the day-to-day of when I'm like marketing these things, or when the engineering team is fixing bugs, we don't think about the long-term effects of what we're doing is going to have. But it's really exciting to think that what we work on can help solve these giant questions and problems that are so complex, that can make society better. And that's really, really what this is. And I think that meditating on that connection more is really important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to think that, with more advanced data in 10 years, if another pandemic happened like COVID, that we could, I don't want to say prevent the pandemic. I mean, you can't prevent, things like that from spreading, but at least be able to control it a lot quicker, find a solution to it a lot faster than we did in 2020. And I think like those are the really cool things. I think that's why tech is so cool to me, because it does have so many practical applications once you, get your nose out from the books and get beyond, fixing the bugs and the like sort of nitty gritty and look at the big picture.
Yeah.
There's such big, like tech can do like so much for good. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, it's an exciting place to be. And I think like what you're saying about the concept of preventing catastrophes like the one that we're in, is also a huge place where tech adjacent non-technical people are going to play a huge role, because expressing the value of numbers, like spreadsheets are spreadsheets all day and they can hold gold. But if you're not able to say, look, this is gold, and a lot of engineers just can't, or they don't have time. And so, yeah, I think that will also be a huge opportunity for people going forward, is how do we express what this means though? Like, what does that mean to the average person? So it's exciting. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so this next segment is called Explain Your Tweet. This is where I dig through your Twitter and I grab a few tweets that I found to be interesting or cryptic or controversial or funny. And I'm going to give you a chance to explain what you meant. So you tweet a lot, actually. So everybody listening, if you're big into Twitter, definitely go follow Christiana. I'll link her Twitter in the show notes. But there were so many I could pull from, but I just pulled a couple to highlight the sort of knowledge that you have. So the first one, this is a recent one from just last week, February 18th. This is a thread. The first one is thinking about how the positive implications of audio and voice tech for older people and people with disabilities is largely absent from mainstream conversations about the industry. Do you remember this tweet?
Of course I do.
I won't read the whole thread. Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, so
you picked a better one. I was nervous. I tweet some weird stuff. So.
You do. I'm not gonna lie, but I think it's all funny. So people that like sort of that like, it's like low key. It's like that low key like subtle humor. If you're into that, follow Christian. Okay, but anyway, explain what you were like. What led you to have this thought, and then expand on the thought a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So I have an Alexa in my room. Oh my God, she might have just heard me. I hope she doesn't wake up. But yeah, so I am really interested in like voice and audio interfaces. And I worked on some in college too. I took this class where we like built an Alexa app, and it was like interesting for sure. But I think that it's just so understated and not central to the narrative of how impactful voice assistants can be for elderly people and people with disabilities. So thinking about like that, I was just imagining, I was thinking, and I was like, why haven't I seen like commercials or read like blog pieces or why aren't there like TED Talks surrounding the idea of like a voice assistant in every elderly person's home that is like reminding them of things like if they need medication, reminding them to take their medication, or making them feel more connected by like delivering like voice messages from their family or anything. Like, you know, asking, I just like that, I've never seen that aspect of this technology advertised. And I like Google searched that after, and it's like out there, but it's not central at all. And you know, there's like all of the this conversation about like, oh, are they like listening to me, and like what does that mean? And privacy is so important. But like also, what about like I would love to see a campaign where like Amazon is like putting these in like nursing homes and things like that. And like especially with COVID, how like I haven't seen my grandparents in over a year, you know, and I know so many older people felt so isolated because they're so at risk and couldn't connect. Like, and just thinking about the implications of like what technology could do to like help them. So that's where that this tweet came from. And yeah, whenever I kind of like think about these things, I sometimes just put my stream of consciousness on Twitter because a lot of smart people follow me. I have a lot of smart friends, and I like want to see what they think. So yeah, that's where that came from.
Well, I love that idea. That's such a good point. You know, people, when Alexa and Google Home and all those devices came out, people like to make fun of them, like, oh, how lazy can you be? You can't even play your own Spotify playlist. You got to like tell Alexa to do it or whatever.
Right.
But it's like, if you think beyond that, there are so many applications of a particular technology that sure, you can do silly things with it, or you can, you know, do things that people view as being extra or unnecessary, but you can also apply that same technology to really practical and really impactful things. And I love that idea.
Thanks.
I'm glad I found that tweet.
Yeah.
Okay, next tweet. This is from February 8th. This is also a thread. The first in the thread is anybody else finding Instagram to be increasingly insufferable? And then you said, I'm also finding that I go on there, watch like 5 of my friends' stories, and then close the app without scrolling any actual posts. Like my brain is reaching a limit with the breadth of imagery, and unfollowing or muting what I don't want to see anymore sounds taxing. Talk a little bit about that and where your Instagram frustration came from, because I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, Instagram. So, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about Instagram, and I just am feeling exhausted by it lately. And I was just noticing this behavior of mine where obviously it's all cyclical now for us to, when we're bored, we open our phones and we go on social media apps. And I would just like not enjoy I was not enjoying my experience on Instagram. And I think that it's really interesting, the psychology and the evolution of Instagram of where we've been. And I just don't have the stomach for like the curated like imagery content right now. And I think it also has something to do with the fact that I'm on my screen all day then anyway, looking at stuff. But yeah, it's just not hitting for me. And it seems like that's true for other people. And I think that our tastes are changing for sure. And I just can't do it right now. It's weird. And, I think a lot of what's going on, I think Instagram is the most curated social media for sure. I think that I have a lot of issues with the concept of a personal brand because I think identity is completely fluid, and any attempt to narrow that down into these boxes of your feed is futile. I don't like it. And I think when I see like a brand doing that, or like an influencer doing that, it frustrates me. So yeah, I'm rethinking my relationship with Instagram, and I'll keep that thread updated. I'm sure, but I think that I mean, I still use Instagram, you know, and I don't think it's going anywhere. But I think with the rise of things like Clubhouse and the way that like Twitter is trying out these new features and things like that, and like the rise of Substack, where like people are sharing like longer form content and things like that, I think just show that our tastes are changing, and our capacity to take in this like highly curated, idealistic online view via Instagram is, especially with the pandemic, like people aren't here for it. Like I want the real ish, you know? And that's not what Instagram has been giving me lately. So that's where that came from.
Got it. Yeah, I think Instagram could be more valuable if the personal branding was a little more authentic and fluid, you know, and it's like you can have a personal brand, but you don't have to commit to that for life. Like it's
Right.
okay to change your personal brand as you evolve as a human being. It's totally fine.
Totally. But I think a lot of people are scared, don't understand that. So for sure.
Totally. Okay, well, thank you for explaining your tweets. I think I found a couple of good ones. I mean, you like all of yours are good, but these were a couple of pretty thought-provoking ones, so I'm glad we got a chance to hear from you and have you explain that.
I was thinking you'd pick some of my weirder ones when I was gearing up. So I appreciate you taking the ones that made me seem somewhat thoughtful. Uh,
I'll just personally respond from my account to the weird ones, but on the podcast we'll talk about the more
I
thought-provoking
like to
ones.
hear. That's what I like. Sounds good to me.
So I feel like we already got a pretty good sense of your personality, but tell people like who you are outside of work. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? Any interesting fun facts about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Christiana outside of work. Whew. Great question. Honestly, like I just said about having a fluid personal brand, I'm a lot of things. I'm a true Gen Z millennial cusper. So I'm online a lot, but I'm also in person a lot. I go for a lot of walks. I live in Brooklyn, so there's interesting stuff to see around here. Um, I am a really relationship centric person, so I really care about my friends and my siblings and the people in my community. So connecting with people as much as I can is huge, especially, you know, within reason now with COVID and all of that. But I also really like to read and write. Those are two big ones for me. Um, but yeah, and tweet clearly. But yeah, those are big ones. I just like being with my people and talk. I love stuff like this. I love talking about interesting things and developing those thoughts in written form. I love exposing myself to other people's artwork and creative work. That's a huge one for me. Um, and yeah, I like so like an example of something that I like to do. Sundays I try to pick a new neighborhood to walk around in and see what it's like there. So, you know, that's my big quarantine hobby. Um, but yeah, that's mainly it. I'm reading a great book right now called How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. I highly recommend it. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit about me, but we're still figuring it out. What Christiana is outside of work is a work in progress. So I'll keep you updated for sure.
I think that's totally fair, and everybody go follow her on Twitter if you'd like to keep up with her, what she's up to. So two super just rapid fire but fun questions for you before we close out. The first one is, if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would you eat?
Oh my goodness, that's so hard. Mm. Soft boiled eggs from my egg cooker. I know that. Okay, so I thought
That was weirdly specific. I was thinking like pasta or like a food group. But hey, if you just want to eat eggs for the rest of your life, that's cool too.
for some reason my head went somewhere like that where I also needed like sustenance. I was thinking like almost like apocalyptic style. Like if I could only get one thing, I would grab my egg cooker and my eggs and I'd be good to go. It sustains me. It's my daily ritual. So yeah, that's huge for me. But I'm from San Diego as well, and I love Mexican food. So if I could only pick one cuisine, I'd probably go with that.
Love it. Get them huevos rancheros in there.
Exactly, exactly. The
Nice, nice.
Californios, all that good stuff.
All right, and then last question. If you could have any superpower, what superpower would you want?
Ooh. Hmm. I think about this all the time. It's hard to choose. I would want them all.
Right.
Um, I think, okay, lately this changes, but right now my answer is speed reading. Because
Oh.
then you could know everything. Like imagine you could be like if you could just like look at a book and know it. Give me 5 minutes in a library and I'm a genius. My life would change immediately. I could learn to code. Because it'd be so fast, right? Yeah, so that's my answer currently. We all want to fly. I think that's tired. So I'm going with speed reading, like speed book.
I love that. I love that. Nobody said that yet. So I love that. I might steal your answer too.
Oh,
I like that. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Christiana. This is so much fun. Before you go, just tell people where they can find you if they want to connect with you personally, follow your interesting tweets, or keep up with you, and then also where they can go to learn more about Coiled.
totally. Yeah. So I am online on all of the socials, but definitely including Instagram, despite what I said about it. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I think my @ is @_Christiana, and then 3 more underscores. You'll find me. You can also email me for sure. It's my first name @coiled.io, and coiled.io is where you can check out all things Coiled. We're also on Twitter @CoiledHQ. And you can try our beta product if you're interested at cloud.coiled.io. And until March 12th, oh my God, look at my marketing hat coming on. We're offering 200 free cores to anybody that signs up, which is huge. So definitely go check it out. And it's a completely free beta. So if you're interested in playing around, do that for sure.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Everybody go follow Christiana. Go check out Coiled. I'll include all this in the show notes as well, so it's easy for you to click to. Thanks again, Christiana, for being here. This was so much fun. I love your little nuggets of wisdom. Hopefully, listeners, you learned a lot as well. Thanks again for tuning in as always, and we'll be back again soon with another episode of Startup Happy Hour.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It was so fun.